Minister, welcome. Just come along this way. Thank you very much. Excellent. Taking the shortcut. And the lectern is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everybody. And thank you very much to our moderator. I don't feel any pressure whatsoever. I thought I would tell you a story about one of the experiments that we carried out in the process of developing a just transition in South Africa. It's, I suppose, the only way one can spin it as a political leader is to say that the reason that you have a guinea pig is because it's the place where you learn and where you make mistakes. So what happened is that there was a pilot project for the decommissioning of one of our coal-fired power stations in South Africa. That coal-fired power station is called Komati. And many years ago, it was a very major power generator. Of course, like most of our coal-fired power stations, it's situated in a province called Mpumalanga, which is where we mine coal. And this power station was a village, grew up around the power station. Those who lived in that village and who still live in that village were workers at the power station and their families, and a whole range of people who worked in the broader value chain of the power station and who supplied goods and services to that power station. They delivered coal, they did maintenance, and the women in that community provided lunch and breakfast and social support and ran taverns and raised children and did all the other things that we women do to keep families together. Now, the decommissioning of this power station happened during the COVID pandemic. So it started in 2020 and it went through 21, 22. And that's quite an important issue because the fact that it was happening under various forms of social restriction and lockdowns impacted on the extent to which there was consultation with the community. So when this process began, everybody agreed that in order to have a just transition, those who work in the power station and those who are working in the broader value chain have to be involved in the consultation about what happens after the power station is decommissioned. They must be consulted beforehand. Everybody agreed that that workers in the power station must not lose their jobs and they must be given alternative livelihoods. And there was also agreement that there need to be new programs, new projects, and new livelihoods that the broader community would benefit from. But what actually happened was that the process, as I said, began during the COVID period. During the lockdown period, there were restrictions on public meetings. There were restrictions on consultation. And so instead of a situation which was originally envisaged, where there would be big public meetings and broad forms of public engagement, the consultation process started happening behind closed doors with small groups of people who were representatives of organized labor, of community formations, and so on. And the consequence of what happened in that process is that, with the benefit of hindsight, which, as you know, is the perfect science, we can see that there was limited report back from those public representatives to the affected stakeholders. And so, in the process of saying what is going to happen with repowering of this power station, what kinds of alternative livelihoods are going to be created, how are we going to ensure that this process of decommissioning benefits the broader community and creates socioeconomic development? That process didn't happen. What happened was that those who were best organized, which were those workers who were working in Komati Power Station and who were members of management-recognized trade unions, those workers were transferred from that power station to other power stations, and where appropriate, they moved together with their families. But those who were less organized, those who were the service providers, those who were working in the broader value chain, doing maintenance and delivering coal and all kinds of other services, those workers or those micro-entrepreneurs were not properly consulted and were not properly involved in the co-creation of alternatives. The women in that community who were running informal trading stalls, providing the breakfast and the lunch and the beers and the childcare and everything else that women do on a daily basis, well, that didn't feature in this process at all. So, sometime after the decommissioning and after complaints were raised about what happened in that process, the Presidential Climate Commission went back there and held a range of public hearings to understand what had happened and what people felt about the decommissioning process now. So, and all of this is written up in a report. It's on the website of the Presidential Climate Commission of South Africa, and it makes very interesting reading and is an excellent learning case study for how not to do this process. So the first thing that the Presidential Climate Commission found, as I've already explained to you, is that there wasn't adequate consultation. The second thing they found was that those who had been in the broader service provision ecosystem of the power station were now unemployed. And they were extremely bitter about the process and that there weren't, in fact, alternative livelihoods for them. And the women no longer had customers for all of the informal services that they had been providing. And while there was some thinking about what happens to the service providers in the value chain, there hadn't really been any thinking about the informal services that women and breadwinners in that community had been providing. And so not only were the men no longer having a livelihood, the women who had been dependent on their custom also now no longer have a livelihood. But the final issue that I want to share with you, that for me was so significant about this situation, is that there has been in that community an exponential rise in gender-based violence. And we can speculate why. We can speculate that men who no longer have an income-generating purpose in families are experiencing frustration, and they're taking out that frustration on their families. Women who previously had a source of income and might have been in a position to extricate themselves from abusive relationships no longer have that source of income and cannot remove themselves easily from that situation. So I thought I should share this with you today because it really tells you a lot about what happens if, before you begin a process, you don't start with the end in mind. And I think that what we've learned from this process is that the end in mind has to be, first of all, not just the workers in the power station, because those workers, by and large, are skilled, and they will probably find employment elsewhere. But one has to consider those who are involved in the broader value chain. But secondly, one needs to have a very specific focus on the question of the women and the girls in the community and what role they are playing in the economic ecosystem and what alternatives would be available for them. This pilot program happened parallel to the Presidential Climate Commission developing a framework, a just transition framework, which has been adopted by our cabinet. And that just transition framework has 3 elements. The first element relates to the consultation. So if people who are going to be directly affected are not consulted, then the transition cannot be just. If people directly affected are not involved in the participation of co-creating, not just being beneficiaries, but co-creation of alternatives, then one can't consider the process to be just. And in our context, as a developing country, if the process doesn't also contribute to restorative justice and to the broader socio-economic development of the community as a whole, then it can't be considered to be just. At the moment, we are in discussion with the partners of the program, which includes the electricity utility and the original financiers of this program, to talk about how we put it right. Because we recognize that if we don't put the pilot right, and we don't have a pilot that is a good and a positive example, it's going to be very difficult to attract community support for additional processes of decommissioning in the future. I think the fundamental learning from this process is that it's important to front load the socio-economic development and the socio-economic change ahead of the decommissioning processes. Because although we remain convinced that there is sufficient evidence to show that alternative forms of electricity generation and alternative forms of green technological development will create jobs, they won't necessarily create them in the places that are going to be affected by the transition, unless there's a very conscious process of looking for new forms of economic development in those areas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Creasy. So now I am going to welcome you all formally to the Gender and Just Transition World Cafe. It is a way of having an interactive, productive, efficient conversation, cafe style. So let me tell you what we will be doing. We will be looking at 4 of the themes of Gender Equality Day today and putting together our recommendations. Each group will have a facilitator to help you and guide that conversation. I'm sure you all know off by heart the themes for Gender Equality Day, but let me remind you what our 4 groups will be. Sectorial policies, including the care economy, so that is a gender-responsive reaction to sectorial policies, including the care economy. A gender-responsive social protection to a just transition. Ensuring equal and meaningful participation through rights and social dialogue. And then also existing opportunities for financing gender-responsive just transition and climate action. So each of those themes will have 2 groups, and I know you're wondering, how are we going to separate it into 2 groups? I'm glad you sent me that question via your thoughts. So let me just help you divide into 2 groups. The first 4 lines, hello, Minister. Welcome to the World Cafe. Line here, this line here, this line here, and this line here, right? First 4 lines, you are in World Cafe A. I hope you enjoy the cappuccino. Then this line here, and this line here, and this line here, and this line here, you are in World Cafe B. And you will be going to meeting room number 8. Now, I know what you're thinking, World Cafe B. We can't even find the pavilions. How are we going to find meeting room 8? It's okay. You go out the door, you turn left, you turn right, and meeting room 8 is almost right in front of you, but also your facilitators will be coming with you. So if you would like to just gather your things, World Cafe B, so the last 4 lines of this room, gather your things, and then we will escort you to meeting room number 8. So it's everybody from this line back. 1, 2, 3, 4. Everybody here, you are going to meeting room number 8. Take your laptops, take your bags. Thank you so much. Your facilitators will be waiting for you to go and start discussing your recommendations for those 4 areas. And you will be swapping through different areas as you do that. So I'm just going to ask if you can do that now. I know you'd all set in for the afternoon, haven't you? And then we will meet again back here at 4:15 in the afternoon. And just before that time, at about 4 o'clock, there will be coffee and refreshments waiting outside for you, because I know you would have worked very, very hard. Facilitators, if you are taking our delegates to meeting room number 8. Please make sure you collect them. The last 4 lines, are you on strike? Are you not going? All right. All right. I have a revolt at the back. All right, everybody, thank you so much. I'm going to leave you to your facilitators, and I'm really looking forward to seeing and hearing your recommendations. And we will meet back here in our program at 4:15. Thank you.
Oops. Hello. Hi, everyone. So we're starting the World Cafe session, and for this one, we really need you to stand up, divide yourself in groups, and you need to go to the 4 corners of the room and to start discussions in groups. So we really need you to move. I'm sorry if you're tired, but the idea is to make you move a little bit, to make you talk to each other and think together through some very relevant topics. You will have the chance to discuss the 3 topics. We have 4 topics. You have the chance to discuss 3 of them. So I invite you to now move to the stations and really start the discussions. We have amazing facilitators on the 4 corners of the room, and they will guide you through some questions. And yes, we hope you have a fruitful conversation. So please, if you can stand up and divide yourselves into the 4 groups. We can have some people going here. We have the group on sectoral policies, including the care economy. There in the back, we have group 4A, which is going to discuss finance. There we have group 3. Well, we have the group discussing rights and social dialogue. And here we have a group making a very interesting discussion on social protection. So please, divide yourselves and let's start. Thank you. Hi, excuse me, everyone. Just to let you know, in 2 minutes, we're going to ask you to rotate. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. I see that our facilitators at Group 4 have already told us that the rotation can start. So please, everyone, Group 4 can go to Group 3, 3 to Group 2, 2 to Group 1, and our group in Group 1 can come here for Group 4. Alors, pardon, je vois que j'ai que dit en français. Je vais pas venir. Thank you so much. I see that some people are already rotating. No, here. Yes. Thank you. Yes, I see our facilitators at Group 4 are eagerly waiting for, for you to come. Ouais. Alors, on commence à roter pour le prochain groupe. Sí, empezamos a rotar para el otro lado. Ay, sorry. The other side. Merci beaucoup.